The most destructive discovery in human history was not created for war. It was created by mistake. If you enjoy deep history stories that help you improve your English, subscribe now. More than 1,000 years ago in ancient China, there were no scientists trying to invent weapons. There were no generals demanding stronger tools of destruction. Instead, there were monks and alchemists searching for something very different: immortality. They believed death could be delayed, maybe even defeated. In quiet rooms lit by oil lamps, they experimented with natural substances. Their work was slow and careful. They mixed ingredients found in nature, hoping to unlock the secret of eternal life. Charcoal, sulfur, saltpeter. These elements were harmless on their own, but together, something unexpected happened. One night, the mixture ignited. Fire leapt across the room. Thick smoke filled the air. Walls turned black. Hands burned. Panic replaced curiosity. The monks survived, but the experiment shocked them. This was not medicine. This was danger. They named the substance huoyao, fire medicine. At first, gunpowder was feared. It was unstable and unpredictable. The monks warned others that it could burn houses and injure people. No one thought of battlefields or soldiers. War was not part of the idea. Instead, gunpowder found a place in celebration. Firecrackers exploded in festivals. Bright flashes filled the sky. Loud noise was believed to scare away evil spirits. Gunpowder became something magical, a symbol of joy, fear, and mystery. But human curiosity never stays quiet for long. Someone noticed that explosions could move objects. Someone else noticed that noise could frighten enemies. Another person wondered what would happen if this power were controlled. Slowly, curiosity replaced caution. Gunpowder was placed inside bamboo tubes, then inside metal. It was no longer... At first, gunpowder was nothing more than a frightening curiosity. It exploded. It burned. It made noise. But humans are pattern seekers, and someone, somewhere, asked a dangerous question. What if we could control this fire? That question changed everything. In China, craftsmen began experimenting with ways to contain the explosion. Bamboo was the first answer. It was strong, hollow, and easy to shape. Gunpowder was packed inside, sealed, and ignited. When it exploded, it didn't just make noise, it pushed. That push was the beginning of weaponry. The earliest gunpowder weapons were not elegant. They were messy, unreliable, and often dangerous to the person using them. Fire lances sprayed flames and metal fragments. Some worked, some exploded in the user's hands. But even in their failure, they revealed something terrifying. Fire could be aimed. As knowledge spread, bamboo was replaced by bronze and iron. Tubes became stronger, explosions became more focused. What began as firecrackers slowly evolved into weapons that could wound and kill. War had discovered chemistry. Gunpowder weapons didn't immediately replace swords or arrows. They were too slow, too inaccurate. But they introduced something new to battle: fear. The sound alone was enough to break enemy lines. Soldiers who had never heard an explosion froze in panic. Horses refused to move. Armies hesitated. Fear became a weapon. As gunpowder technology improved, its use expanded. Bombs were thrown by hand. Explosives were launched over walls. Fire rained down on cities that once felt secure. For centuries, thick stone walls had protected rulers and kingdoms. Castles were symbols of power. They told enemies, "You cannot enter." Gunpowder laughed at those walls. Explosions cracked stone. Cannons smashed gates. A single blast could undo decades of construction. Fortresses that once took years to conquer fell in days. This was not just a military shift, it was a social revolution. Knights trained their entire lives for combat. Their armor, skill, and strength made them elite, but gunpowder didn't care about skill. A poorly trained soldier with a primitive firearm could kill a knight in seconds. Power no longer belonged to the strongest warrior. It belonged to whoever controlled gunpowder. Rulers realized this quickly. They invested in weapons factories, storage facilities, and engineers. War became less about honor and more about logistics. How much gunpowder do we have? Who can produce more? Who can afford it? Gunpowder was no longer an experiment. It was no longer entertainment. It had become policy. And as its power grew, it refused to stay in one place. Gunpowder was about to leave China, and once it crossed borders, the entire world would feel its impact. By the time gunpowder left China, it was no longer a curiosity. It was a secret worth stealing. Merchants whispered about it along trade routes. Soldiers carried stories of thunder weapons that shattered walls. Along the Silk Road, small amounts of the strange black powder crossed borders, hidden inside packs and wagons. Knowledge followed. In the Middle East, scholars studied gunpowder carefully. Unlike the early experiments in China, these were deliberate, precise, mathematical. The formula was refined, measured, and recorded. Gunpowder became more stable, more predictable, and far more powerful. With control came confidence. Cannons began appearing in battles across the region. Stone fortifications that once guaranteed safety cracked under repeated blasts. Siege warfare transformed overnight. What once took months could now be achieved in days. Gunpowder did not just attack walls, it attacked certainty. When the knowledge reached Europe, the impact was explosive. Medieval Europe was built on fortresses and armored knights. Power was physical, honor was personal, combat was close. Gunpowder destroyed all three. Cannons tore down castle walls that symbolized royal authority. Muskets pierced armor that had taken generations to perfect. Years of training meant little against a weapon that could kill in seconds. The battlefield became impersonal. A peasant with a firearm could defeat a noble knight. This shattered social hierarchies. Power shifted away from individuals and toward governments that controlled production and supply. War became industrial. Rulers quickly understood the new rules. To survive, they needed gunpowder. To afford gunpowder, they needed money. Taxes rose, bureaucracies expanded, standing armies replaced temporary forces. The modern state was born under the sound of explosions. Gunpowder also transformed the sea. Ships once relied on speed and ramming, now they carried cannons. Naval battles became floating fortresses firing destruction across waves. Whoever controlled the oceans controlled trade, colonization, and wealth. Gunpowder powered empire. Exploration expanded not out of curiosity alone, but out of confidence. Firepower allowed small groups to dominate distant lands. Indigenous defenses collapsed under unfamiliar weapons. But destruction was only half the story. Gunpowder also reshaped construction and industry. Mines expanded deeper into the earth. Roads were carved through mountains. Tunnels connected cities. Infrastructure advanced rapidly. The same force that destroyed cities also built them. Yet something darker followed. Distance entered violence. Killing no longer required eye contact. A command, a trigger, a blast. Lives ended without confrontation. This changed how humans felt about war. It became easier to start, harder to question, easier to repeat. Gunpowder had redrawn borders, societies, and minds. And still, humanity was only beginning to understand the power it had unleashed. Because the final transformation of gunpowder would not be about walls or empires, it would be about the future of human conflict itself. Gunpowder was never supposed to last this long. It was born from curiosity, shaped by fear, and perfected by ambition. Yet centuries after its accidental discovery, it still controls how power is measured and how conflicts are decided. The monks who mixed charcoal, sulfur, and saltpeter were searching for life. They never imagined their mistake would become the foundation of modern warfare. But once humanity discovered how to control fire, there was no turning back. Gunpowder became the language of power. Nations rose and fell depending on who mastered it first. Armies were no longer judged by courage alone, but by supply chains, factories, and technology. Victory belonged to preparation, not bravery. As centuries passed, gunpowder evolved. Muskets became rifles. Cannons became artillery. Simple explosions became precise weapons. Science refined destruction. Accuracy replaced chaos. Speed replaced patience. The battlefield transformed into something colder. Wars became larger, faster, and more devastating. Cities could be destroyed in hours. Millions could die without ever seeing the faces of those who caused it. Gunpowder removed intimacy from violence. It also removed hesitation. When killing becomes distant, it becomes easier. But gunpowder did not only shape war, it shaped civilization itself. Governments grew stronger to control weapons. Laws expanded to manage force. Borders hardened. Diplomacy evolved because the cost of conflict increased. Gunpowder forced humanity to organize. It also forced humanity to reflect. Every generation faced the same question. Just because we can use this power, should we? Yet, the cycle repeated. Each new conflict justified the next improvement. Each improvement demanded a stronger response. Gunpowder locked humanity into an arms race that never truly ended. Even today, modern weapons are descendants of that ancient accident. Bullets, missiles, explosives all trace their lineage back to one unstable mixture created in a quiet room centuries ago. The world has changed, technology has advanced, but the core idea remains the same. Controlled fire equals power. Gunpowder also reveals something uncomfortable about human nature. Our greatest breakthroughs often come from curiosity. Our greatest tragedies come from how we apply them. The monks wanted eternal life. Humanity received endless conflict. Gunpowder did not choose violence. Humans did. And yet, within this story lies a warning and a lesson. Knowledge itself is neutral. It becomes dangerous only when ambition replaces wisdom. The story of gunpowder is not just about war, it is about responsibility, about understanding the weight of discovery before unleashing it upon the world. Because the most powerful inventions are rarely evil, they are simply mirrors. And gunpowder reflects humanity's eternal struggle between creation and destruction, a struggle that began with one small accident and continues to shape our world today.